Mr. X has two enormous hands and no interest in picking up a gun. Nemesis arrives with a rocket launcher. That is not a costume choice or a simple training difference. Both use tyrant bodies, but Nemesis has an additional organism inside him that can understand a more complicated hunt. Mr. X follows an objective. Nemesis can pursue a campaign. The intelligence problem. The T-Virus program wanted a humanoid bioorganic weapon with the strength to fight soldiers and enough intelligence to obey orders. Those two goals constantly interfered with one another. Most humans infected by the T-Virus became zombies. Their metabolism accelerated, tissue deteriorated, and higher brain function collapsed. They were contagious and dangerous, but useless for a specific military task. A tiny number of compatible hosts could become tyrants. Their bodies developed extreme strength, durability, and regenerative ability without immediately losing every useful neurological function. The T-002 beneath the mansion was an early success. It could respond to basic control and survive enormous damage. It was also unstable. Releasing it against stars was a combat test, and the creature could attack Albert Wesker as readily as the intended targets. Umbrella refined the design into the T-103 line. These mass-produced tyrants were more human in appearance, easier to transport, and capable of receiving basic mission instructions. Their limiter coats suppressed uncontrolled mutation and protected the body. One of these units, T-00, became the pursuer known as Mr. X in Raccoon City. Mr. X is therefore not mindless. This is the first misconception to remove. He recognizes targets, navigates buildings, searches areas, responds to sound, and continues an assigned mission over time. A completely unintelligent creature could not recover an object or distinguish relevant survivors from random infected animals, but his intelligence is narrow. He can identify, pursue, seize, and kill. He does not display complex tactical reasoning, communicate with handlers, or operate specialized equipment. His value is reliability. Umbrella gives him an objective that can be solved with strength and persistence. The police station does not require a rocket launcher. It is already full of narrow corridors, civilians, evidence, and potentially valuable viral material. Firing explosives inside it would be a wonderfully efficient way to destroy the sample Umbrella sent him to recover. Mr. X's hands are enough. The brain inside Nemesis. Nemesis has a different mission. Umbrella's European branch creates the Nemesis Project to overcome the cognitive limits of standard tyrants. Researchers implant the NE-alpha parasite into a T-103-based host. This project also reflects competition inside Umbrella. The company is not one perfectly unified laboratory. Different branches pursue rival methods of creating bioorganic weapons. The American research line refines the T-virus and tyrant hosts. The European branch develops the Nemesis parasite as a way to improve intelligence without waiting for a naturally perfect human host. That is a clever shortcut in the worst possible field. Instead of forcing the T-virus to preserve more of the original brain, the researchers add another organism that can perform part of the brain's job. The tyrant supplies the body. The parasite supplies higher control. The model's full designation, Nemesis T-type, reflects that combination. Nemesis is not the parasite alone and not the tyrant alone. It is the weapon created by their relationship. That relationship can fail. A parasite introduced into a host may be rejected, kill the subject, or take over too aggressively. The host needs enough physical compatibility to survive implantation, and enough control to remain deployable. The successful result is therefore far less reproducible than placing standard orders into a T-103 unit. The parasite does not sit inside the body like a passenger. It extends through the host's nervous system and forms a supplementary brain. Official descriptions emphasize that it substantially increases intelligence and allows external control. This arrangement is deeply unpleasant for the host, which is a sentence that could be attached to every successful Umbrella project. The parasite develops tentacles that move through the body and can emerge as weapons. It helps regulate behavior, recognize detailed targets, and coordinate actions a normal T-103 would not manage. In the remake, those tentacles reveal that Nemesis's intelligence upgrade is also a biological vulnerability. Damage to the restraint or parasite system does not simply reduce performance, it gives the organism more opportunity to reshape the host. The black growths, exposed tissue, and later quadrupedal form are not equipment changes. They are signs that the controlled partnership is breaking down. Umbrella has effectively installed a living command computer that can grow through the machine. Nemesis is then given an unusually precise objective: eliminate the surviving members of STARS. Not everybody in a building, not anything that moves. A named group of trained witnesses scattered across a collapsing city. That mission requires memory, recognition, pursuit, and adaptation. Nemesis has to identify Jill Valentine, distinguish her from other civilians, follow her across changing environments, and continue after she escapes multiple confrontations. Brad Vickers is also a target. In the original game, Nemesis kills Brad outside the police station. In the remake, Brad's fate changes, but Nemesis still pursues the remaining STARS personnel, especially Jill. That version difference is useful. The exact victim changes while the mission category does not. Nemesis is not ordered to kill every police officer in Raccoon City. If that were the objective, the company could deploy more conventional tyrants. He is programmed around the people, whose testimony can connect Umbrella to the mansion. This requires a concept closer to identity than location. Jill may change clothes, move from street to subway to hospital, and travel with people who are not STARS. Nemesis continues selecting her. Mr. X is also capable of target recognition, especially when a required object or survivor is in sight. The difference is degree. Nemesis can maintain a much more detailed target profile across a far more dynamic hunt. The word STARS is essentially his mission compressed into speech. He can say it because he retains more vocal and cognitive function than a standard tyrant. He can also use a rocket launcher because using one requires a chain of abilities: recognize the weapon, hold and aim it, track a moving target, understand distance and line of sight, fire at an appropriate moment, avoid immediately destroying yourself with it. That final criterion already places Nemesis above several human enemies in video games. In the original Resident Evil 3, the rocket launcher is the clearest symbol of his intelligence. He does not merely swing it like a club. He aims and fires explosive projectiles while pursuing Jill. He also chooses when not to fire. That sounds minor, but restraint is part of weapons use. A creature that pulls the trigger continuously until the launcher is empty is not meaningfully tactical. Nemesis tracks Jill's movement and uses the weapon to control space. The remake turns that into a chase where laser guidance follows her through the streets. He fires to destroy cover and cut off movement, not only to score a direct hit. Likewise, the flamethrower lets him pressure Jill at range and deny areas of the rooftop. When she damages its fuel tank, he switches to striking with the burning apparatus. That is adaptation inside an encounter. The weapon stops functioning as designed, so he changes its use instead of discarding the mission. A standard T-103 may understand that a door blocks its path and break the door. Nemesis understands that a tool has changed and finds another way to turn it against the target. The remake expands his equipment. Nemesis uses a flamethrower during the rooftop fight, first as a ranged weapon and then as a burning melee device after its fuel tank is damaged. Later he uses a rocket launcher in the city streets. He also demonstrates environmental adaptation without a handheld weapon. His tentacles allow him to pull Jill, leap across gaps, infect zombies with parasite organisms, and change the shape of a chase. This does not mean Nemesis sits down before deployment and earns separate certificates in flamethrower safety and urban rocketry. Umbrella can train or condition the parasite host system for specific equipment and send commands through its control process. Why Nemesis gets weapons. The NE Alpha parasite gives the platform enough intelligence to use the training. External control matters just as much. Intelligence by itself is not useful to Umbrella if the creature decides it would rather attack the handler. The parasite allows operators to impose mission information and direct behavior beyond the simple conditioning of a standard tyrant. Nemesis can be deployed with target data and equipment selected for the operation. That does not mean a human pilot is moving each arm remotely like a giant biological drone. Nemesis retains enough local processing to chase, aim, and respond in real time. A handler defines the goal. The parasite host system solves immediate problems. This balance is what military robotics would call autonomy, except the robot is made of stolen biology and becomes a building-sized meat flour when damaged. There is also a practical reason Umbrella arms him. STARS members are unusually capable targets. Jill survived the Spencer Mansion, fought hunters, escaped a tyrant, and already knows Umbrella's methods. She carries firearms, understands police tactics, and recognizes bioorganic weapons. A pursuer limited to close-range attacks gives her more opportunities to create distance or escape. A rocket launcher removes the comforting assumption that the monster must reach you first. Nemesis is a walking answer to everything that allowed the mansion survivors to live. They know how to use doors and terrain. He follows. They know how to keep distance. He uses weapons and tentacles. They can damage a tyrant. He mutates and continues. They can expose Umbrella. He removes them. Why their missions differed. Mr. X's police station assignment is broader and blunter. He is sent to eliminate survivors and, in the original continuity, recover a G-virus sample linked to Sherry's pendant. His targets are largely trapped inside a confined structure and underground laboratory. He does not need to outshoot Leon. He needs to keep Leon from leaving. This brings us to the second misconception. Mr. X does not avoid weapons because his fingers are too large. His anatomy would make ordinary firearms awkward, but Resident Evil contains custom equipment for large, bioorganic weapons. Nemesis's rocket launcher is built for his size. Umbrella could theoretically design a weapon for a T-103. The limiting factor is whether the creature can use it safely and whether the mission benefits. A standard tyrant with explosives is not automatically better. Give a low-intelligence, mutation-prone organism a rocket launcher inside a laboratory, and the weapon may solve the enemy, the evidence, the building, and the quarterly budget simultaneously. Mission environment is the overlooked half of the answer. Mr. X enters the Raccoon Police Department, an enclosed stone building containing tight corridors, underground passages, civilians, and documents. His original recovery objective may depend on retrieving a very small sample. Explosives create risk without solving a problem his body cannot already solve. He can tear through walls, lift wreckage, crush doors, and kill at close range. His durability lets him absorb defensive fire while approaching. A firearm would add ammunition dependence, and another object that can be lost or damaged. Nemesis operates across open streets, rooftops, rail infrastructure, and larger industrial spaces. Jill can create distance and use the city to escape. Ranged weapons close that gap. The equipment matches the geometry. If the assignments were reversed, Umbrella might arm the platform differently. The absence of a gun is not a universal rule that every T-103 is physically prohibited from touching one. It is a combination of cognitive limits, safe control, and mission needs. Control determines utility. When intelligence breaks down, this is why the limiter coat matters for both creatures. It is not simply armor. It restrains mutation and helps preserve the humanoid operating state. When Mr. X loses that restraint and suffers severe damage, he becomes the super tyrant. His claws grow, his speed increases, and he relies even more heavily on direct aggression. He becomes physically more dangerous while becoming less suitable for a careful recovery mission. Nemesis follows the same broad pattern on a larger scale. Early in the operation, he can use tools, obey a specific objective, and pursue strategically. As Jill damages him and the parasite-host relationship destabilizes, he mutates into increasingly animalistic forms. By his final form, nobody is handing him another rocket launcher. He has become an enormous mass that attacks through raw force and acidic secretions. The intelligence that defined the project is being buried beneath the mutation that keeps him alive. Again, Umbrella's best weapons become strongest when they stop being useful. There is a reason this keeps happening. The T-virus and related organisms respond to damage through regenerations and mutation. A stable humanoid body can follow commands and use equipment. A radically mutated body can survive, but the nervous system, anatomy, and behavior change with it. Umbrella wants both maximum adaptability and perfect predictability. Biology refuses to provide both. The difference between Nemesis and Mr. X is therefore not simply boss difficulty. It is two answers to the same engineering problem. The tyrant Umbrella could copy. Mr. X represents a successful production tyrant. He is comparatively stable, repeatable, and capable of basic orders. Umbrella deploys several T-103 units in Raccoon City, proving the company can manufacture them as a class. Nemesis represents an experimental command upgrade. He is more intelligent and versatile, but also more complex, more expensive, and dependent on a parasite that can transform the host in unpredictable ways. One is a product. The other is a prototype attached to a product. That product distinction changes the acceptable failure rate. Umbrella deploys 6 T-103 Tyrants during the Raccoon City disaster. 1 goes to the police station operation, and 5 confront government soldiers near the disposal facility. Multiple units can be transported, released, and sacrificed. Nemesis is deployed alone for a high-value test against the surviving STARS members. The city is both an assassination site and a live demonstration of the European branch's work. If Nemesis kills Jill, Umbrella removes a witness and validates the project. If Jill damages him, the company gathers data about his durability and mutation. If the city is later destroyed, the physical evidence disappears. Once again, Umbrella has designed an operation where nearly every outcome except public survival can be useful. That helps explain why Umbrella did not simply replace every T-103 with Nemesis units. The NE Alpha Parasite project carries its own risks. Implantation can fail. The parasite may damage or dominate the host. Creating, conditioning, and controlling the result requires specialized research. If a mission only requires breaking through a police barricade, a standard Tyrant is sufficient. Military procurement does not give every delivery van a missile system, simply because one exists. Although Umbrella would absolutely test the missile van under a hospital, Nemesis's increased intelligence also creates a subtler risk. The more cognitive freedom a bioorganic weapon has, the more ways it can interpret or deviate from a command. Umbrella solves part of that through the parasite's external control and obsessive target programming. Nemesis does not develop hobbies between encounters. His intelligence is directed toward pursuit. He can solve tactical problems without gaining meaningful autonomy. This is where Nemesis differs from an intelligent human soldier. A soldier can interpret a mission ethically, assess whether the intelligence is wrong, surrender, protect a civilian, or turn against the commander. Those possibilities make human intelligence flexible and politically dangerous. Nemesis receives the flexibility without the moral alternatives. He can decide how to reach Jill, but not whether Jill deserves to die. He can select a weapon, but not a purpose. He can adapt to resistance, but not recognize that Umbrella created the disaster around him. The parasite does not elevate him into a person. It expands the number of routes between order and violence. That is the real achievement. The purpose of intelligence in Umbrella's weapons is not personhood. It is obedience with a larger menu of actions. Mr. X can obey 3 verbs. Nemesis can build a sentence. Neither gets to choose the subject. This makes their visual similarities more tragic. Both have humanoid outlines, because Umbrella wanted the mobility and adaptability of a person. Both are dressed or restrained because the body must be held in a useful state. Both began with biological material turned into a numbered platform. Nemesis appears to have more personality because he roars, speaks, uses tools, and reacts aggressively to Jill, but that personality is largely mission behavior. The parasite gives him the capacity to express purpose, not freedom from it. He does not hate stars as people. He has been built so that stars is the only meaningful category in his world. Mr. X is quieter because his objective does not require speech. His silence can make him feel less intelligent, but it also makes him more controlled. He does not waste action announcing the mission. He simply continues it. The gameplay reflects these designs. In the Resident Evil 2 remake, Mr. X changes how the player navigates a familiar building. His footsteps create pressure. He blocks routes and forces improvisation. The fear comes from persistence. In Resident Evil 3, Nemesis changes the rules of each encounter. He closes distance suddenly, uses tentacles, interrupts routes, carries different weapons, and mutates through stage confrontations. The fear comes from escalation. The original game makes that escalation less predictable by allowing Nemesis to appear in different areas and sometimes giving the player a choice to fight or flee. He can follow through doors, which was startling in a series where doors often functioned as loading screens and emotional support. The remake makes his large encounters more scripted but gives him a wider move set. Fans debate which version is the more effective pursuer, but both versions express the same lore function. Nemesis can do more than a standard tyrant because the parasite lets him process more. Mr. X's remake behavior became more dynamic than his original appearance too. He patrols, follows sound, and intrudes into rooms in a way the 1998 version could not. That gameplay upgrade does not turn him into Nemesis. His actions remain within the standard tyrant's simpler mission profile. Those are game design choices, but they are supported by lore. Mr. X is the reliable pursuer. Nemesis is the adaptive hunter. There is also an important continuity caution. In the original Resident Evil 3, Nemesis uses the rocket launcher and tentacles. The remake adds the flamethrower and restructures his mutations. We can compare the versions without pretending every encounter occurs identically in one timeline. The core explanation remains unchanged because Capcom's own descriptions center the NE alpha parasite and the intelligence it provides. The parasite creates a supplementary brain. It allows external control. It enables complex weapons. That is the canonical bridge between tyrant strength and human-like tactics. So could Mr. X learn to use a weapon if Umbrella modified him? Possibly. The T-103 body is the foundation Nemesis uses. With a parasite, neural implant, specialized conditioning, or different control system, another unit could theoretically operate equipment. But at that point, it is no longer the same standard Mr. X platform. The modification is the explanation. Without it, handing him a rocket launcher would be less like arming a soldier and more like leaving power tools near a bear. The bear may produce results. The after-action report will lack focus. The most revealing comparison comes at the end of both creatures' missions. Mr. X fails to eliminate Leon and Claire. He mutates after losing the coat and is destroyed with an anti-tank rocket launcher. Nemesis fails to eliminate Jill. He is repeatedly damaged, infected by further mutation, dissolved, rebuilt into a massive final form, and destroyed by an experimental rail weapon. Umbrella gives Nemesis a rocket launcher. Jill eventually responds with a gun that requires its own power station. Escalation remains undefeated. In both cases, the biological weapon performs impressively until a survivor pushes it beyond the controlled state. Once mutation takes over, the mission narrows from complete the objective to kill what is in front of you. The creature survives longer. The weapon fails harder. That is the line Umbrella never manages to control. A living weapon can heal, adapt, and keep fighting after a machine breaks. But a living system has drives, thresholds, and transformations. Every adaptation may rewrite the instructions. The real difference. Mr. X uses no weapons because Umbrella does not need and cannot safely rely on that complexity in his standard model and assignment. Nemesis uses weapons because the NE alpha parasite gives him the intelligence, motor control, target recognition, and external command structure to operate them. His STARS assassination mission benefits from ranged and adaptive tactics. The answer is not that Nemesis has hands and Mr. X has fists. It is that Nemesis has another brain. Not a human brain in the normal sense, and not a friendly passenger whispering tactical advice. It is a parasitic control organ integrated into a tyrant body. That is why damaging Nemesis does not simply reveal a stronger Mr. X underneath. It destabilizes a partnership between two weaponized organisms. The tyrant regenerates. The parasite expands. The mission persists while the form capable of completing it disappears. There is one last comparison that makes the difference very clear. Imagine both creatures lose sight of Jill at an intersection. Mr. X can continue searching likely routes. He can respond to noise, recognize her when she reappears, and force his way through an obstacle. That is impressive behavior for a mass-produced bioorganic weapon. Nemesis can do all of that while changing the method of pursuit. He can leap ahead, use a tentacle to close distance, infect nearby zombies to make the route more dangerous, or use ranged equipment to remove the cover Jill chose. The extra intelligence does not make him smarter in every human sense. We never see Nemesis write a plan, negotiate, or question new information. It makes him tactically richer inside the boundaries of one obsession. That is why fans often experience Mr. X as scarier in a hallway, and Nemesis as more spectacular in a fight. Mr. X's simplicity creates inevitability. Nemesis's versatility creates surprise. One turns your safe route into a countdown. The other turns your solution into the next phase. Both are successful expressions of their design until mutation overwhelms it, and both expose Umbrella's real limitation. The company can increase strength, intelligence, and adaptability, but it cannot combine them indefinitely without producing a creature that escapes the category of usable weapon. Mr. X remains useful because his choices are limited. Nemesis receives more choices because the mission demands them. When his body finally gives him too many biological choices, he stops using tools and becomes one. So the next time Mr. X walks past a dropped shotgun without picking it up, it is not because he forgot the controls. Umbrella decided the most reliable weapon in his hands was Mr. X himself. Nemesis is what happens when the company decides reliability is no longer enough. It adds intelligence, equipment, and a narrower target list, then spends the rest of the operation watching those advantages dissolve into mutation. The rocket launcher is not proof Nemesis has become human. It is proof Umbrella has learned how much humanity a weapon needs before the ability to choose becomes inconvenient. Mr. X stops below that line. Nemesis is built to stand exactly on it. And the most disturbing part is what Umbrella does with that brain. It does not give the creature a self.